welcome to another episode of Phil's Morning Drive here on YouTube. Today we're behind the wheel of the Porsche Cayman S. Very exciting to share this vehicle with you. We have a car here that is a little bit older. It's not brand new, but it has very few miles on it, only about 23,000 miles to be exact. We're going to take it for a spin, see what we think, let you know what it's like to drive and be behind the wheel, and see what we can do to get you next to me. Over here in this seat, you will be sitting right alongside me as we take a test drive of this Porsche Cayman S. Okay, so one of the things about the Porsche Cayman S is that it is a mid-engine Porsche as opposed to the traditional 911 that is a rear-engine vehicle. Now, when you have a mid-engine vehicle, it actually gives you the opportunity to have not one, but two trunks. So I've always thought that the Porsche Boxster and the Porsche Cayman are a little bit more practical than some of the other roadsters and sports cars that you can get in the same segment, whether that be a BMW Z4 or a Mercedes SLK. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Get a little closer here. This is the traditional trunk, if you will, and we open this up. It's really almost like a hatchback, and so you've got a pretty decent amount of space. This is fairly deep. It's enough to, you know, put a duffel bag. I would recommend soft side suitcases for back here. You also have this nice net that's up here at the top and this very nice aluminum finish and things. But one of the things that they've done in recent years is they've been able to add this little function, which is a carpeted area that kind of finishes this out a little bit better, where this is where you fill the oil and this is where you put in your coolant. So each of those things are back here. It's a little bit easier for you to get to, and this just makes for a nice finish. Actually, right underneath this panel right here is where the engine is. So lots of horsepower is just right there, and you can see where the seat is and where the back of your head is while you're driving it. So it's really a very neat experience. Okay, so we come around to the front of the Porsche Cayman. A lot of folks like to call this the frunk because it's a trunk that's in the front. One of the cool things about owning a car like this is you could really freak people out whenever you go to the grocery store or the hardware store, because you get some stuff and you open up the front and they think, oh, is he having car trouble? No, I'm just putting some things into the trunk. And as you can see, quite a bit of space. This is lots of space in here if you have a hard-sided suitcase. But some of this other stuff that you're looking at here, this car is not equipped with a navigation system, but if it was, you would open this up and the discs would actually go right in there. The module and everything would actually be right inside there. Behind this panel, you'll also notice that there's no spare tire. Well, behind this panel, you twist these and they kind of pop. Okay, there we go. And so right down here you have an air compressor. You have some this kind of fix-a-flat goo stuff that kind of plugs into the air compressor, and then you can plug that into your 12-volt plug-in inside the car, or the cigarette lighter. You also have a nice little tool kit here, some stuff there. This is, of course, the amp for your Bose sound system, and then there's a tow hook here as well. I'm not sure if you can see all that, but, and of course the emergency latch over here. As you can even hear it there, it's ready to make sure that you don't get stuck in the trunk. Up underneath here is where your battery is, and then over there is where you'd put in any washer fluid would go in over there. And there's another thing here that you open up to put in brake fluid. So there you go. Of course, Porsche is all about performance, and everywhere that you look around this car, a lot of folks will see a car like this and think, well, that just seems like kind of a sleek, sexy sports car, and they don't really realize that Porsche is very, very intense with their engineering and different things that they do. And there's a little bit of some subtle nuances that not only tell you the difference between each model, but can also lend to the performance aspect as well. Being that this is the S version of the Cayman, we're seeing that, or I should say, one of the quickest ways that you can tell that this is the S version is by these red brake calipers. If you see those on a Boxster, a Cayman, a 911, even some of the SUVs on the Cayennes or the Macan, that kind of lets you know this is the S version. And you'll also notice that there are cross-drilled rotors. That helps with some of the brake cooling. These discs are a little bit bigger than what you'd get on the standard car as well. And of course we have the 19-inch rims on this one. I think the standard was more like 18, but these are bigger and a little bit wider, which also helps with the handling. Not so much on the ride. As you can see, these are not very thick tires, but really does help as far as performance is concerned. Now, if we stand up here a little bit, you'll also notice that this is where the gas tank is. I'm on the passenger side, and it's right here. And so this is pretty nice. It does lock whenever you lock the car, but the reason that they put this here, it's all about weight balance and distribution. The best way to get good handling is to keep all the weight in the center of the car. So in this case, we have the gas tank that really, this is where you put the gas in, but all along here behind the frunk and in between where you're sitting is where the gas tank is. So that helps to keep the weight in the center of the car. Cayman S. As you can see, we got an empty seat here. That's for you. Hopefully we make you feel like you're riding along with me at this point. So, some numbers about this car. You're talking about a car that has one of the biggest flat sixes up to this point. This car is a 2006, which is the first year for the Cayman, and they only did it in an S trim in 2006. So, keeping that in mind, the base trim came out in 2007. But the S version has the most horsepower. The only thing you could do to get more horsepower than this would be to switch up to a 911. But I really like this car. It's really one of my favorite cars in the world. Certainly one of my favorite cars under $100,000 because of the way it makes you feel. It's really hard to describe. It's a feeling where the car is like an extension of your body, if that makes sense. The input from the steering, the input from the shifter, the transmission, the engine, of course, right here. That's the engine, is right behind that wall right there. So it also has a lot of torque, and so you get an opportunity to feel like as I kind of slow down here a little bit, and even though I'm in fourth gear, we're doing about 40, when I push on the gas, it's like you kind of feel it's like someone takes their hand like this and kind of pushes you in your back, like, here, let's just move along a little bit. It's a very nice feeling, but it's also nice because you don't have to shift as often because of the amount of torque that this engine produces. Just a hair under 300 horsepower, about 295, sub 5-second 0 to 60 time. It's funny because I've seen some conflicting numbers, and it's kind of widely known that Porsche, when they publish their numbers, like if you went to Porsche.com to read about this car when it was new and to see what it said, they would give you a top speed, they would give you a 0 to 60 time, but those numbers typically would be erring on the side of, we know it will for sure do that, but it could probably do more. That's kind of the idea with that. So, gosh, the handling in this car is unbelievable. Given the mid-engine setup and given that the center of gravity is mounted so low, this engine uses a dry sump lubrication, meaning that there's no oil pan, and so it allows the engine to sit lower, and then you've got a low chassis anyway. I mean, the car does sit pretty low. Then you sit low, and you sit so close to the engine. I mean, I can turn around. It's almost like I can turn around and touch the engine while we're driving down the road. It's really an interesting feeling. So all of the weight is right here in the middle. I've heard people describe this car with the handling as it's kind of pivoting around your hips as you're driving, and I think that's pretty accurate. It really is nice to drive. Something else I would say about this car that is kind of helping to describe what it is like to drive. As you're behind the wheel and you're driving around town, things are pretty smooth. You have to work the clutch, you know, you're doing a lot more shifting, and it doesn't necessarily feel that fast. If you kind of lean into the gas a little bit and kind of work the clutch and the gas, you know, it's a nice drive. Obviously, it has a fantastic sound, but as you're driving through town, you think, well, this car doesn't necessarily feel like it has a ton of power. But when you get it out here on an open road, see, like right now I'm in 5th gear, and you can push on the gas, and again, you have that kind of torque feeling of the engine pushing you. So really, out here on these country roads, this is really where the Cayman, or in this case, the Cayman S, really shines. Let's talk options on this car. What we're looking at is, and of course, here's the thing you got to remember about Porsche is they have like an unlimited amount of options. If you're bored some evening, have 2 or 3 hours, and maybe you've already done this, but if you haven't, you should go to Porsche.com, find a car, whether it be a Cayman, whether it be a Boxster or a 911, go on there and build one and look at all the different options. It's really, really interesting, all the different things. There's whole sections for, okay, I want Alcantara, which is like, it's a suede type material. You can get an Alcantara shift knob. You can get a steering wheel. You can get, you know, stuff for the glove compartment, for the center console. There's so many different things that you can buy. Then if you say, okay, well, I like leather. Well, you want it all to be leather. You want the dash to be leather. You want, you know, the headliner to be suede. If you like wood, okay, you can do a wood steering wheel. You can do wood trim. If you like aluminum, you can do aluminum trim, which is kind of what we have in this car. If you like carbon fiber, you can put carbon fiber on the steering wheel, on the shifter, on the dash, other places. There's also other options, like you can have the Porsche crests stitched into the headrests. Navigation system is an option. This particular car doesn't have a ton of options, but it does have these excellent Sport Plus seats. You can see this area right here. That's how you know that it's the Sport Plus seats. And for me, it really, really hugs my entire body, whether it be my upper body, my lower body. You've got plenty of side bolsters and things. If you wanted to take this car to the track, it is certainly track ready with that. Other options on this car, this also has the excellent Bose sound system. There's like 12 speakers in here. You got like 4 or 5 in the door. You've got 3 up here on the dash. You've got some in the rear cargo area, and so it sounds excellent. There's plenty to listen to. We've got a CD player. You've got AM/FM stereo, of course. You could add Sirius XM. You could add an iPod connection. You could do Bluetooth as well, depending on what you might be interested in. Those are all different things that you can get, but the Bose sound system I would definitely recommend. I'm a sucker for a premium sound system. I mentioned that on my last video. You know, Mercedes is kind of partnering with Harman Kardon at the moment. Porsche has Bose. They also have, if you really want to spend some money, you can get the Burmeister sound system. And on a new Cayman, I looked at that the other night, again with the Porsche expensive options. In certain cases, that can be as much as $6,000 or $7,000 added on to the price of your car. So in a hurry, you can really option one of these out and really get it. Well, it starts to get up there after a while, but if you're really into sound, I think that you would really enjoy the Burmeister sound system. Although the Bose is fine, I don't find myself going, oh, I wish it was better. This also has, I will tell you, one other option that's a must-have option is the Bi-Xenon Headlamps. So you have high and low beam xenon, and at night, especially if you're on country roads or if you like to drive fast, they certainly give you a lot more visibility, and they simulate daylight, which is the whole idea. If you've seen these around and you don't have xenon headlamps, that's what those are all about. Simulating daylight, so that you have, it's more of a blue-white light. If you've seen cars driving around with that, those are typically xenon, although now xenon is kind of becoming old hat, and the new thing is to have LED headlamps, and I hope to drive a car soon on this segment where we can show you what those are like. But really, it's a pretty cozy cabin. I'm pretty close to 6 foot, and as you can see, I've got a pretty decent amount of headroom in here. These seats really fit my body just perfectly. They almost like contour to you, and so that's really a nice feeling. It's just a great car, and if you ever get a chance to drive one, I would certainly recommend it, because if you even like to drive a little bit, this car will certainly impress you. Great sound, great sound. And you can actually get, this car doesn't have it, but you could actually get the Sport exhaust, which would give you the opportunity to have an even louder exhaust system. And if you get the Sports Chrono package, there's a button down here on the dash that looks like 2 tailpipes, and that actually opens a flap in the exhaust that gives you the opportunity to make it louder. So you can actually push a button, you open those flaps, and you get more sound. You also get a stopwatch up here on the dash so you can time your laps, which is another race car bred thing. That's just another really cool thing, and it's neat. It sits up here and it counts. It's a digital and an analog at the same time, so it's pretty cool. Some other things I want to say about this car. You'll notice the power spoiler that comes up whenever you get over 75 miles an hour, so that you have an opportunity to help keep the back end down. It does create a reasonable amount of downforce, so it's something that can really help when it comes to keeping the back end and making the car feel stable at speed. It's also received quite a bit of complaints, especially here in the US, simply because of the fact that now the police know when you're speeding. So if the speed limit is 70 and your spoiler is up, it doesn't necessarily mean you're speeding, but if you're a police officer and you know that that's part of it, it could mean that, or at least you were speeding and now you've gone back below the speed limit. That's possible, because it doesn't go down until you get back down in the 40s. One of my other favorite things about this car is the view in the side view mirrors. It's really awesome. There's this view, and I'll show you now what I'm talking about, of the car has these wonderful, okay, you might say sexy, hips, and they're these it just is really, it's really cool. And so when you look in the side view mirror, you look back there, and yeah, you can see the other cars or who's in the other lane or whatnot, but it's really great. The main thing that you want to hear on this car is you want to hear the exhaust. So let me give it some gas here and you'll get to hear it. Sounds awesome. I think all these cars are fantastic. There's something about the way they feel. It's very clinical, it's very precise, it's very much a precision instrument, a precision tool that really gives you the opportunity to feel the road and feel what it's like. Well, that does it for my road test of the 2006 Porsche Cayman S. Hopefully you enjoyed not only getting to see what it's like to drive, but also getting to hear that fabulous exhaust note. In the meantime, hopefully you'll check out my brand new Twitter page, @PhilsDrive, and of course, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel for more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.